Latest information streaming into our newsroom from Du in the Dongamantum Division, Northwest region of the Republic of Cameroon indicate that the victim of torture perpetrated by men in military, gendarmerie and police uniforms in that part of the country has once more been picked up by elements of the National Gendarmerie to an unknown destination. Tonight we'll bring to you revelations on what happened to that indigene of Du in the Dongamantum Division in the crisis-hit Northwest region of the Republic of Cameroon. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us in this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television, live from our headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. My name is Babla Jonathan, and we're starting this newscast right away in Du in the Dongamantum Division in the crisis-hit Northwest and Southwest or Northwest region of the Republic of Cameroon. Latest information streaming in from that part of the country into our newsroom indicate that the victim of torture perpetrated by men in military, gendarmerie and police uniforms has once more been arrested by elements of the National Gendarmerie, and he has been taken to an unknown destination according to his relatives and other sources on the ground in Du in the Dongamantum Division. And of course tonight we're bringing to you revelations on all what happened to Fai Mbungong, the individual who was tortured, and his image went viral. The images of the incident went viral on social media, attracting condemnation from across the board. For me, I'm Strong Sander.
This is where and when the tough encounter between Jean Fai Mbungong and Cameroon security officials began, after he was picked up from Maku in Du.
No player. We be thinking a play, no be player.
At the veranda of the Du Council premises, an amateur video shows Jean Fai Mbungong being interrogated by 3 police officials.
When you try, you go die for the matter. If not them, they send you. Look out.
First curiosity, Jean Fai Mbungong is found in possession of 2 national identity cards, though family members say one belonged to his late father. He is also seen in possession of natural medicine and charms, increasing the curiosity of the uniform officers. An encounter which will not end at the council building but continue on a more disturbing phase elsewhere, as justified by the second and most viral video. A video in which he is unacceptably tortured by a mixed team of gendarmes, police officials and soldiers. Following widespread condemnation, Cameroon's Ministry of Defense, through its spokesperson, Colonel Research Atomfac, said that the concerned security officials have been identified and taken into custody at the Ndu Territorial Gendarmerie Brigade. Talking to the investigative team of Equinoxe Radio and Television, the victim, Jean Fai Mbungong, and his family confirmed that he is back from the hospital in Kambe and is responding to treatment.
And latest information streaming into a newsroom from Ndu indicates that he is once more been arrested by elements of the National Gendarmerie, and according to family and other sources in that part of the Dongamantum Division, he has been taken to an unknown destination, and we yet to know exactly where he was taken to and what is happening to Fai Mbungong, the individual tortured by elements of the National Security and Defense Forces in Ndu in the crisis-hit Northwest region of the country. We'll keep you updated as soon as we are informed. talking about traditional rulers in the two English-speaking regions of the Republic of Cameroon. They have become principal targets of violence or acts of violence. Many of them have been abducted, some killed, others tortured severely by armed individuals. And the latest occurred in the Libialem division, where some of the traditional rulers, 3 of them, were taken to the market square of one of the villages in that part of the country and killed. And of course, we'll be talking about that. And in the meantime, earlier, the traditional rulers of the Fako division complained that they were not in security. Their security was and still at stake, and many of them have been targeted by armed men within the context of the Anglophone crisis. Derek Jato has more.
Fako Division, one of the zones hosting African Nations Championship (CHAN), is having exceptional security concentration as the air, land, and sea seem to be colonized by special units to hit back any opposing idea or action. And the Fako chiefs in that enlarged executive meeting for 2021 sounded a note of warning and caution to their peers on security measures and to respect COVID-19 measures.
We know the crisis we are facing. We know the COVID-19 which is there by us, and the new version is out again today.
Chief Ndike Richard, president of Fako Conference of Traditional Rulers, called on the government to do more for things are still happening. For instance, while descending for this meeting in Tiko subdivision, some chiefs here were caught in the crossfire between the separatist fighters and the State Defense and Security Forces at Ombe along the Mutengeni Limbe Road.
We are not safe. We are not safe for the fact that you saw what happened in Mutengene today with the council workers that just went down there. If not God, that was a fast intervention from the Mutengene unit, something best would have happened.
This president of Fako Traditional Rulers also begged on their children still holding guns in the bushes against the state to drop them and come home to be part of these numerous opportunities provided by the government. But there is another problem: misunderstanding within.
This institution should not be an institution of betrayal, because you stand in position, you want to be the toughest person, so you have to betray everybody, you have to backstab them.
The administration too is penetrating into the affairs of traditional rulers to either puncture or weaken certain moves. Showing appreciation, Chief Etina Monono thanked his peers for electing them into the House of Chiefs and reminding them that they are in the house to defend their interests.
We can assure you that as we are here, we are going to do what the Fako team wants.
This 2021 enlarged executive meeting of Fako Conference of Traditional Rulers was to review the activities of 2020 and draw a roadmap for 2021.
Derek Jato reporting there, and there is a protest move that will be coming up in the days ahead in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé. And this protest move has been orchestrated by the Minister Delegate at the Ministry of Economic Planning and Regional Development and other elites of the Lebialem division. And this protest is coming after the killing of 3 traditional rulers in Esoeta village. I told you earlier they were brought to the village square and killed in the public. And the elite of the Lebialem division, Minister Paul Tassong, has urged all inhabitants of that part of the southwest region to come out massively and protest in the nation's capital against such acts of violence against traditional rulers, not only traditional rulers of the Lebialem division, but also those of other parts of the 2 English-speaking regions. Many of them have been abducted and some killed, many of them in the southwest region of the country. Now we're going to take you now to the road linking the nation's political capital, the nation's economic capital, Douala, and a pool of agriculture, that is Yabasi in the Kam division here in the littoral region of the country. The road is in a very deplorable state. Construction works had been going on for more than 3 years, but a greater portion of that road remains untarred and in a deplorable state, provoking suffering for the population and commuters. Details in this report by Immaculate Fogwe.
On board this pickup, Equinoxe TV team is on its way to Yabasi in Kam Division, littoral region of Cameroon. Pickup 21. A cloud of dust is the first obstacle we encounter. The Douala Bonepupa Yabasi Road project is a 3-year emergency plan which kick-started in 2017 and was expected to be completed in 2019. More than a year after the deadline, the project is still pending.
Again, William Taku from the Manu division. Well, when I look at this road precisely, I'm so much disappointed because it's a very long project and I've not been seeing the advancement of the road as compared to the time given to the company in question. So I see no work done as compared to the amount of time that I've been in the field.
Due to the dusty nature of the road, the population is exposed to all sorts of respiratory diseases.
They are plaguing us into diseases and many other things that we cannot even cure ourselves. So it's too difficult for us.
Yabasi is an agricultural pool, but much of its farm produce get rotten in the farm due to the bad state of the road linking the locality and the country's economic capital.
Ankobat is not doing anything. I tell you anything. And Ankobat needs a sanction. But when I see the technical team coming from Yaoundé to investigate how work is being done here, they come here and they go back. Ankobat is still here. So I begin to wonder. I begin to ask questions here and there to people around me, to other people outside of me, to the world at large. They come here, they see what Ankobat is doing, that they are doing nothing. They go back to Yaoundé and they continue to do nonsense.
The company handling the project attributes the slow pace of construction work to financial constraints emanating from government's failure to disburse funds for the completion of the project. Apart from the problem of bad roads, inhabitants of Yabasi need potable water and electricity.
Now we go out of the Republic of Cameroon to talk about the first female to head the World Trade Organization and the first African to hold that position. The Nigerian former Minister of Finance was appointed, and she's taking over office with a lot of determination to give that organization and trade around the world a new face. Details in this report by Innocent Azi.
Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, former Nigeria's finance minister, becomes first woman and African to lead the Switzerland-based institution, World Trade Organization, WTO, following her appointment on Monday, January 15th, during a General Council meeting. The 66-year-old, who was strongly supported by U.S. President Joe Biden, wears the crown of Director General of WTO at a time the world's economy is being crippled by COVID-19. Her major preoccupation is strangulating the COVID-19 pandemic to save the world's economy.
Will help the world economy to also bounce back further. So it can play a role on the health side and the economic side. I would also like to see a longer term framework set up for response to pandemics. So not just solving this immediate problem, but we are going to have more pandemics in future. And I think the WTO should get with other international organizations like the WHO, Gavi, CEPI, even the World Bank, IMF, and all those multilaterals to try to set the rules so that next time we don't spend time trying to figure out how to respond. It will just trigger a set of actions.
Working on the fisheries subsidies negotiations also is her priority, as well as dispute settlement mechanism.
I think there's a very strong chance to complete those, which have been going on for 20 years, and this is far too long. We need to be accountable to end these negotiations and end them well, because they are very important for the world. It means sustainability for our fisheries in our oceans. So that's very, very important. I think third would then be focusing on the dispute settlement mechanism and trying to set forward a pathway, a work program, a set of reforms that can be agreed and pushed forward at MC12. So those are three top ones.
Digital economy and e-commerce negotiation animates Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala.
The digital economy and the e-commerce negotiations are very dear to my heart. And the simple reason is that I just see the blossoming of SMEs using online platforms to trade and to improve their lives. And so I want us to see if we can make progress in that area.
It should be recorded, Okonjo-Iweala also serves on Twitter's board of directors as chair of the Gavi Vaccine Alliance and as a special envoy for the World Health Organization's COVID-19 fight.
Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, former Minister of Finance in the Federal Republic of Nigeria, now Director General of the World Trade Organization, will tell us what went wrong in Africa as far as the continent's development is concerned. She was speaking during TED Talks. Take a listen.
Things we did wrong. The first was that even though we grew, we didn't create enough jobs. We didn't create jobs for our youth. Youth unemployment on the continent is about 15%, and underemployment is a serious problem. The second thing that we did is that the quality of growth was not good enough. Even those jobs we created were low productivity jobs. So we moved people from low productivity agriculture to low productivity commerce and working in the informal sector in the urban areas. The third thing is that inequality increased. So we created more billionaires. 50 billionaires worth $96 billion own more wealth than the bottom 75 million people on the continent. Poverty, the proportion of people in poverty, that's the fourth thing, did decrease, but the absolute numbers did not because of population growth. And population growth is something that we don't have enough of a dialogue about on the continent. And I think we will need to get a handle on it, particularly how we educate girls so that they can, that is the road to really working on this particular issue. The fifth thing is that we didn't invest enough in infrastructure. We had investment from the Chinese, that helped some countries, but it's not enough. The consumption of electricity in Africa, on the continent, in sub-Saharan Africa, is equivalent to Spain. The total consumption is equivalent to that of Spain. So many people are living in the dark. And as the president of the African Development Bank said recently, Africa cannot develop in the dark. The other thing we have not done is that our economies retain the same structure that we've had for decades. So even though we've been growing, the structure of the economies have not changed very much. We are still exporting commodities. And exporting commodities is what? It's exporting jobs. Our manufacturing value added is only 11%. We're not creating enough decent manufacturing jobs for our youth. And trade among ourselves is low. Only about 12% of our trade is. Then governance. Governance is a serious issue. We have weak institutions and sometimes non-existent institutions. And I think this gives way for corruption.
Now, the way forward, what are the solutions to these problems, solutions that should be put in place to enhance Africa's development, or better still, the development of African nations? Take a listen to Okonjo-Iweala.
The low-hanging fruit is one, preparing a very successful MC12 that will come out with outcomes. And within that, completing the fisheries subsidies. Low-hanging fruit may be a bit, people might say it's not as easy, but I do feel it's within reach for us to agree on that. Another low-hanging fruit is dealing with the pandemic. I think we can come to some agreements on that and tick that off. The third one is agreeing the work program for solving the dispute settlement mechanism. I'm not saying solving it, just agreeing the work program. I think we can get to MC12 with a work program that will work. And then there are a few other things like, can we get to agreement on exempting the World Food Program, for instance, from export restrictions so that humanitarian endeavors of the WFP are not hampered? I think we can also push for that. So let me just stop there. I think those are 4 areas where I think we can get results.
That's it for the first part of this newscast. Talking Point is up next. Thank you for staying with us in Talking Points. Today we are talking about the constant and repeated attacks on traditional rulers in the northwest and southwest regions of the country. Many of them have been abducted, killed, or tortured, and today they have been abducted, killed, or tortured, and today we are receiving a traditional and civil society leader, Chief Mofo Joseph. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Mr. Babila Jonathan. You are welcome.
Right, and joining us from the United States of America, Dr. Eugene Eta. Doctor, thank you for taking off time to be with us in this edition of Talking Point. Right, I start with you, Chief Mofo Joseph. When you heard that your peers, traditional leaders like you, were brought to the square, the village square in Eso Eta village, Libya Lem division, southwest region of Cameroon, and killed in public, what was your reaction?
Concerning this issue of 3 chiefs that were killed in Libya Lem, I was very shocked when I got the news. In fact, this is chiefs represents values of our traditions and ancestors. They are not supposed to be treated that way. If a chief cannot be pardoned and be treated that way in a very barbaric way, in fact, I believe ancestors of lands are going to punish those who committed acts of that nature.
Now, chiefs are being targeted not only in the southwest, but also in the northwest region of the country. At this point, what you take about the evolution of the crisis?
Yes, it started with the fun of Saw and the fun of Come. It is really poor and unacceptable. Members of the government, as they are ruling, they could have seen to the problem and give more security to funds and chiefs. They could have just been handled like that and be killed in public places. It looks very odd. If funds and chiefs have involved themselves to politics, government should equally take measures to guarantee their security so that they should not be assassinated in a careless way like that. Because this is not the first, not the second. Many things, many strange things keep on happening with funds because their security is not guaranteed. Had it been the government is really taking things the way the population those funds are guiding, they could have given them security, given them gendarmes or army to be guiding them as they are guiding other members of the governments before carrying them to their localities.
Right. Dr. Eugene Eta, traditional rulers in your home country have become principal targets in the ongoing situation in the northwest and southwest regions of the country. They are being targeted, arrested, abducted, killed, tortured. When you hear that chiefs are being tortured and killed in that manner, What's your opinion about what is going on there?
Thank you, Mr. Babila. I'll start by expressing my heartfelt condolences to the people of the BLM and to the families of the chiefs that were killed. Sometimes last year, my father, the Fon on Saw, was also kidnapped and held in one of the separatist camps. And on Sunday, the Fon of coming back from a Thanksgiving ceremony in Jinicom was actually stopped on the way by the separatist leaders, and immediately the mayor of Fundong heard about that the fund was stopped by a separatist. He went on social media and said the fund was kidnapped. The fund was not kidnapped. And this same mayor, he rallied young boys and girls to storm the separatist camp today. This is a reckless behavior from a mayor, because when these guys went to that camp, those separatist leaders stood down by not engaging them in a firefight. There would have been a bloodshed. So what is happening with our chiefs is exactly what is happening to the civilian population of the Northwest and the Southwest province. On December 6th, the government gave a cheap bait to these chiefs, and some of them partook in an election which was a farce. And so if you see what is happening to the chiefs, what is happening to the population, especially a young child that was roasted last week in Batibo, they are just symptoms of a disease. And the disease has to be treated, not the symptoms. The country Cameroon can be aptly described now as a failing state. The responsibility to provide safety to the people falls squarely on the shoulders of those in charge.
In your opinion, Doctor, in your opinion,
to provide peace and common defense, then the state is failing.
In your opinion, what is the problem with chiefs, with traditional leaders? Why are they being targeted at this point in time and treated in this way? We know that in Cameroon, chiefs or traditional leaders in general are still highly respected in the two English-speaking regions of the country.
I grew up knowing that the chiefs and the traditional rulers are supposed to be the custodian of the people within their jurisdiction. Unfortunately, because the state is failing, because the appointed officials cannot rule the people, they decided to bring in the chiefs into the political sphere. Believe me or not, some of these our chiefs are not politicians. A lot of them are basically educated. So once they were brought into the political scene, they turned to serve their master in Yaoundé and not the people in their jurisdiction. So the administration has successfully placed the chiefs against the people. And that is why even the security that I heard the fund saying that they should give these people security, a gendarme or two gendarmes standing by a fund is not the solution. The solution is that we should look at the root causes of the problems in Cameroon. All of these symptoms we try to talk about will not solve it. People don't hate their chiefs. They don't hate their funds. The government has put the funds to be at loggerhead with the people, and now the people can no longer believe in what their funds do. But does it mean that they should kill the funds? No. Does it mean that they should kidnap the funds? No. But again, when we talk about killing and kidnapping, these incidents took place 2 days ago. We cannot lay blame on the separatists, neither can we lay blame on the government. But we are expecting the government to look into the issues and actually make an investigation. Mr. Babila, don't forget, this is February 14th. February 14 last year, we had a similar situation in Gabur. It was fluid for a very long time before the government could take responsibility for that heinous act. The chiefs of the BLM have just been killed. It's less than 3 days. And for the minister delegate at the Economic Planning and Regional Development, Paul Tassong, to come out and explicitly say that it is Field Marshal under the directions of Chris Anu, I think it's a little bit disingenuous. Cases like this take a long time to resolve. And unless they send in the security agents to carry out a thorough investigations, all what we'll be hearing now will be just hearsay.
All right, Doctor, in
Yaoundé.
All right, we'll come back to you. We'll come back to you shortly, Doctor.
Yeah.
We'll come back to you shortly, Chief Mofo. The palace has been politicized. Doctor thinks that this is where there's a problem. Traditional rulers are now serving their masters in Yaoundé. You are a traditional leader. Is it true?
Yes, Mr. Babila. What you have just said, it is true. Because traditional leaders like chiefs and fonds, they are not more serving their population, they are serving their leaders in Yaoundé, which is His Excellency Paul Biya. And these matters of killing fonds have not just started today. Fonds have been killed. They are destroying our traditions. And fonds themselves, involving themselves to politics, they don't supposed to do so. If you are a fund, you need to enlighten your populations. You need to carry information to the administrator, but you keep yourself aside of politics. When you involve yourself to politics, you can't serve your populations anymore, accordingly as traditions demand. If you can look carefully to this problem that secessionists or free marshal or whosoever is involved of killing these funds, if you can investigate carefully, you will see to it that maybe those who are involved of these killings, it can be a problem between them. It can be a problem that concerns the funds and those people. You don't know. It can be political problems. You don't know. Let the governments really carry the truth investigations and come out with the results, and let the populations of BLM and other regions like Northwest understand what is happening, that their phones are being killed. Now people will be afraid to go on thrones, like sons of the phones that have been killed. The phone that will take the throne now will be afraid. He will not stay in the village. The village will be abandoned. Then who will be respected in that village to govern that village?
No, concerning the involvement of traditional leaders in politics, recently the Minister of Territorial Administration said in Bafoussam in the West region that politics is a distraction to traditional rulers. But there is the House of Chiefs that has been put in place in the two English-speaking regions of the country, and the House of Chiefs is one of the institutions brought in or restored, so to speak, because it was there before. Even though what has been put in place now, many think that it is far from what was there before. There is the House of Chiefs. There are traditional leaders who are represented in the regional assemblies. As for what concerns the two English-speaking regions of the country, should they stay away from the management of the affairs of their communities?
No, Mr. Babla, you will not tell me that when killing these chiefs, it is because they are in the House of Chiefs. No. The House of Chiefs is not existing today. Though with the decentralization process, many things have been added in the House of Chiefs. You will not tell me these 3 chiefs that has been assassinated in Libya, in the FACO, means they are in the House of Chiefs. There must be something wrong. We should stop fooling Cameroonians. We should tell the truth to Cameroonians. Phones are not supposed to involve themselves to politics. Even if they called you, try to enlighten, try to be with your population, and at least talk to them, ask them if they really want you to be this, they have proposed you this. Do not just go and enter and be doing things and do useless your life as if you were not a leader of a village. It looks very odd. They are destroying our traditions.
Assigning gendarmes to protect the traditional leaders, is it an appropriate solution to the problem? You highlighted that a few seconds ago, but
it's one of the proposals to help these traditional leaders not to be killing like fowls. Even if you are not even a traditional ruler, you are a citizen. Your life is very expensive. These traditional rulers, he has his people that they are protecting. Where were these people? Where are the police and the gendarmes govern this area? You mean to tell me that these villages that these phones have been killed, have been kidnapped, there's no police, there's no gendarme, they are not army?
That's it.
If they themselves cannot really look at the situation and say, no, these phones are supposed to be protected, what are the measures, what are the solutions to assure these phones that they should go back to their villages and keep on ruling? What are the measures the governments are really taking?
Let me take that question to Dr. Eugene Ita, joining us from the United States of America. The incident which happened in Eso Ita village in Lebialem division of the Southwest region, does that reveal lapses in efforts made by government, put in place by government to ensure the security of the people?
Mr. Babila, thank you very much for that question. There is a breakdown in law and order, and there is a total loss of personal security in Cameroon. We have a rise in armed gangs, and we have a rise in kidnapping and ransom. Why do we have increase in all of this? Like the chief rightly said, once you politicize the chiefdoms and the kingdoms in a country, and you use some token fees to let the chiefs who are supposed to represent their people be answerable to a regime in Yaoundé which is failing, these things will continue. Like I keep saying, that we are addressing the symptoms by looking at the killing and the kidnapping of these chiefs. A bigger problem lies in Cameroon in front of us, and that will be the fight of succession. If a ruler fails to provide peace and common defense, there will be a major vacuum in that country in the nearest future, where these symptoms will build up and there will be a huge succession crisis in that country. For 4 years, Southern Cameroonians have been speaking. For 4 years, Yaoundé has not been listening. For more than 24 years, Cameroonians were saying that they want decentralization. The government did not listen. Cameroonians walked away from decentralization. So this idea of decentralization is failed. If the government had listened for the last 4 years, the government would have realized that the basic minimum that the people will want now would be a federation not a decentralization.
Why do you think that the decentralization process is a failure? Why do you think that is a failure when the process is ongoing, the regional institutions have been put in place, and the regional officials are already getting to work?
Look at the sham election that was conducted on December 6th. Look at how the people first did not go out to vote. It was not universal suffrage. Number two, if you have any elected regional officer who is being installed by a government-imposed government delegate or DO, how can an appointed individual install an elected individual? That elected individual will be answerable to who? And if you look at the laws of decentralization, Yaoundé has a right to dissolve any regional council if they don't toe the line in Yaoundé. Therefore, those regional councils that is being put in place are not answerable to the people in place. This is the strangest form of decentralization I've ever heard about. So it is a failure. If the government had listened 24 years ago, we would have been at this stage of decentralization. Now the people are out of, look, Babila, whether we like it or not in that country, the only starting point now can be a federation. And if this doesn't work, the Southern Cameroonians will stay on their path to independence.
The only starting point now, can only be federation, according to Dr. Eugene Eta. Do you also think so?
Yes, because this is 4 years of killing. The head of state have not said anything, have not been to these two regions to see how he can sit on a table and negotiate amicably with these phones and other members concerned in the crisis. Killings keep on going. We don't just understand the only solution. Rather, the head of state himself, he resigned, or we go to the federation state. That can be the second solutions. First, rather he resigned. Second, rather we go on the federation state to see how we can manage this situation, because it's too much.
How will the resignation of the head of state solve the problem?
Please, because people are crying in these two regions. He has never, Mr. Babila, been there. Just once. Keep on selling people, keep on voting commission. That will not bring any solution to the problem. Let himself visit these people and say, my dear children, we have been enjoying peace for more than half a century. If today there is misunderstanding, let us sit together on the table and negotiate and dialogue and find solutions so that we should not be killing ourselves. Military are your brothers. You secessionists, you are their brothers. We should not be killing ourselves and say we are looking for solution.
We should not
you
be
can
killing
be
ourselves.
fighting a good fight, but at the end you finish it bad just because you have been killing your brothers here and there, simply because you want a solution, which is not fine.
Chief Mufo Joseph, traditional and civil society leader, thank you for joining us today. Time. Ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us, that will be it for today's edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television. Equinoxe comes up next.